Take a moment right now to slow down and settle into a calmer state. Set aside the noise that has been filling your mind for a little while and gently bring your attention inward to what you have truly been feeling beneath everything else. You may have noticed something recently that is difficult to explain with ordinary words. There is a pressure that appears in your chest without warning. A sudden thought of a particular person comes into your mind unexpectedly. There is also a restless, almost electric sensation that quietly moves beneath the surface of your everyday routine. That feeling does not seem random, and it may not feel like imagination either. It can seem like a signal. Something inside you is paying attention to emotions and possibilities before your conscious thoughts have fully caught up. Your deeper awareness often works on a level beyond conversations, messages, or visible signs. It notices subtle details long before they become obvious in the outside world. This is why you may feel that something is shifting with this person before there is any clear evidence of it. That gentle pull within your chest, the one you may have dismissed as simple hopefulness, can feel like your inner guidance reminding you that this connection still holds experiences that have not fully unfolded. This is often how meaningful changes begin. Before something important appears in the external world, a quiet tension starts building inside. It feels like an emotional pressure that is difficult to describe completely. That may be exactly where you find yourself right now. Small openings seem to be appearing where there was once only silence. New possibilities seem to be forming where there once appeared to be solid barriers. Your place in this person's life may not have disappeared in the way you once feared. While you have been living through uncertainty and carrying your own questions, something may have been changing quietly within them. The protective walls they built around their heart from fear, pride, uncertainty, and the desire to remain in control may have slowly begun to weaken. The strong feeling you have been sensing lately may come from the idea that emotions can only remain hidden for so long. Eventually, truths have a way of moving toward the surface, whether someone feels prepared for them or not. The connection you share may feel deeper than ordinary understanding. It may not seem like something that time or distance can simply erase on its own. To understand why this shift feels so significant now, and why the coming days may seem different, it helps to consider what this person might have been experiencing during the quiet period between you. They may have been moving carefully, keeping their distance while still paying attention from afar. They could have been caught between uncomfortable fears and a powerful attraction toward you that they worked hard to ignore. During the time apart, they may have filled their days with routines and responsibilities that appeared perfectly normal from the outside. They may have looked calm, composed, and completely in control, like someone who had moved forward and adjusted to a new chapter. Yet that appearance may have been only part of the story. It may have become a role they played, not only for others but also for themselves, so they could continue believing that stepping back had been the right choice. As time passed, carrying that role may have become more exhausting. Beneath the surface, a silent internal struggle could have been unfolding that very few people around them ever noticed. Night after night, they may have wrestled with emotions they could not easily explain. They may have relied on logic to justify the distance and convinced themselves it was the safest and most sensible path. Some of that may have come from pride. Some of it may have come from fear. Some of it may have come from not knowing how to handle feelings that seemed larger than they expected. This situation happens more often than many people realize. Sometimes a person steps away not because they feel too little, but because they feel too much. Being deeply understood by another person can feel unsettling. It can bring forward fears about vulnerability, loss of control, or the possibility of being hurt again. Yet when a connection reaches someone on a profound level, endless reasoning eventually begins to lose its influence. Slowly, the protective barriers they created around themselves may begin to soften. As that happens, they may start recognizing that life without you feels dimmer and missing something meaningful that cannot easily be replaced or explained. a new awareness may start developing within them. They may begin realizing that the guarded and carefully controlled version of themselves they have been presenting is not who they truly are. It may simply be a role they adopted for protection, and that role may no longer fit the person they are becoming. Every attempt they made to create more distance between you may have been interrupted by something unexpected that continued drawing their thoughts back. It may not have felt like ordinary longing. Instead, it may have touched something connected to their identity and sense of purpose. For them, it could have become a turning point, something resembling a personal awakening. There may have been periods when they tried to cover these emotions by staying busy with distractions, social activities, work, responsibilities, and constant noise. Yet even then, comparisons may have continued appearing. Thoughts they never intended to speak aloud may have kept finding their way back to you. All of this may have been building quietly beneath the surface and contributing to the shift you are beginning to sense now. Something appears to be changing, and this time, the familiar distractions may not be offering the same escape they once did. A person can avoid their deeper emotions for only so long before the effort becomes exhausting. That may be exactly where they are now. The life they created to keep those feelings at a distance may no longer provide the same comfort or numbness it once did. They may have convinced themselves that enough space would weaken the connection. They may have believed that enough silence would slowly reduce the intensity of what they felt. They may have assumed that enough time would eventually remove your presence from their emotional landscape. Yet the opposite may have happened. The longer the separation continued, the clearer their feelings may have become. Rather than fading away, you may have become more present within their thoughts. They may have noticed reminders of you in unexpected moments, during quiet evenings, before falling asleep, and in conversations that somehow felt incomplete. In crowded places where noise surrounded them, they may still have felt strangely alone. Something kept redirecting their attention back toward you. That is often when a deeper understanding begins to take root. They may have started realizing that what they shared with you was not simply an ordinary connection or a temporary spark of excitement. Instead, it may have touched parts of them that few people ever reached. Once that realization settles in, it tends to change the way a person views everything around them. Because once you recognize that a bond is truly meaningful, it becomes difficult to continue treating it as though it never mattered. Their mind may still try to debate the situation. Logic may still present arguments against it, but the heart often begins speaking with a persistence that reasoning alone cannot silence. There may have been evenings when they sat alone, remembering conversations you may have forgotten long ago. Small moments that once seemed ordinary may now carry unexpected significance in their memory. The way you looked at them during a difficult period, the comfort your presence provided without effort, the rare feeling of being with someone around whom they did not need to pretend. That kind of emotional safety is uncommon. When it disappears, the absence often becomes impossible to ignore. It leaves behind a space that cannot easily be filled by distractions, achievements, or other people. The memory of genuine understanding has a way of remaining present long after circumstances have changed. As these realizations continue growing stronger, they may find it increasingly difficult to maintain the emotional distance they once believed was necessary. The explanations that once felt convincing may begin to lose their power. Old fears may still exist, but they no longer feel as strong as the desire to understand what this connection truly means. The process may not happen all at once. Real emotional change rarely does. Instead, it often unfolds gradually through moments of reflection, honesty, and unexpected clarity. Little by little, the truth becomes harder to avoid. What was once pushed aside begins demanding attention. The feelings they worked so hard to suppress may now be asking to be acknowledged. The questions they avoided may be returning with greater urgency. The connection they attempted to place in the past may be standing directly in front of them again, asking to be understood rather than ignored. And perhaps that is why your intuition has been so active lately. Perhaps that is why certain thoughts arrive unexpectedly and certain emotions seem stronger than usual. Whether or not every feeling points to a specific outcome, something within you recognizes that a chapter is shifting. There are moments in life when change begins long before it becomes visible. The emotional world often moves ahead of the physical one. What appears on the surface later is sometimes the result of quiet transformations that have already been happening beneath everything for a very long time. This person may now be reaching a point where honesty feels less frightening than avoidance. They may be discovering that running from their feelings requires more energy than facing them. They may be recognizing that some connections leave a lasting mark precisely because they reveal truths about who we are beneath all our defenses. As that awareness continues growing, the path ahead may begin looking different than it once did. The walls that seemed permanent may no longer feel impossible to cross. The silence that once felt endless may no longer feel sustainable. And the emotions that were hidden away may be preparing to step into the light, where they can finally be seen clearly. For now, what matters most is recognizing that meaningful connections often leave traces that do not disappear easily. They continue teaching, revealing, and transforming long after the initial moments have passed. Whether through reflection, growth, understanding, or renewed communication, they have a way of guiding people toward deeper truths about themselves. And if this person has truly been moving through the journey described here, then they may be arriving at a place where clarity becomes stronger than confusion, where authenticity becomes more important than protection, and where the feelings they once tried to bury can no longer remain hidden beneath the surface. They have been trying to fill that empty space, and it simply has not worked. The more they searched for it in other places, the more clearly they began to understand what truly existed between the two of you. At first, their pride convinced them that they could move forward without difficulty, and that they were stronger than the emotions they carried. But pride always has its limits. Eventually, it encounters the reality of genuine emotional truth. For this person, that moment has now arrived. They have started seeing this connection from an entirely different perspective. It is no longer something they believe they can simply replace or walk away from whenever they choose. They are beginning to recognize that meeting you changed something deep inside them in a lasting way. It is not something they can simply decide to reverse. While all of these changes have been taking place within them, something important has also been shifting inside you. Even if this person still enters your thoughts often and you continue wondering what the future may hold, you are no longer standing in the same emotional place where you once were. Something within you has grown steadier, stronger, and more peaceful through this experience. You have learned what it truly feels like to reach towards someone who is not meeting you halfway. You have experienced the exhaustion of carrying most of the emotional weight on your own. Gradually, through uncertainty and extended periods of silence, you started bringing your energy back to yourself. That shift is far more significant than it may seem on the surface. When you stopped stretching yourself beyond your limits and stopped remaining endlessly available in the hope that one day it would finally be enough, everything about the energy between you began to change. There was a period when most of your emotions were directed outward toward this person. The way you felt each day often depended on whether they responded, whether they showed up, or whether they seemed to notice you at all. Your emotional balance was tied closely to their actions. But eventually, you became tired of living that way. Not in a dramatic or explosive manner, but because your deeper self finally understood that your own peace carried value. You gently redirected your focus inward. Not because you stopped caring about them, but because you finally started caring for yourself with the same devotion and consistency. That choice created a powerful, energetic shift. When someone is constantly directing all of their attention outward, their presence can begin to feel familiar enough that others take it for granted. It becomes part of the background rather than something consciously appreciated. But when that energy quietly returns inward and settles into calmness, the absence of it becomes impossible to ignore. That is exactly what this person is beginning to notice now. They are experiencing your distance differently because your energy no longer carries the same urgency or need for validation. You are no longer reaching constantly for their attention in the way you once did. Rather than weakening the connection, this change has forced them to confront what they have genuinely been missing all along. This is one reason they have become increasingly restless lately. Somewhere inside, they sense that you are evolving. The version of you who waited endlessly, tried harder than necessary, and made themselves smaller for the sake of the connection is becoming someone new. That realization creates a feeling of urgency. Suddenly, time no longer feels endless. They are beginning to understand that opportunities do not remain available forever. People often fail to recognize the true value of something until they have spent enough time living without it. This person is now sitting with the full weight of every moment they delayed, every feeling they pushed aside, and every decision that was influenced more by fear than honesty. For perhaps the first time, they can no longer easily escape that truth. Sometimes separation is not what destroys a bond. Sometimes it is what reveals its significance more clearly than ever before. Distance has a way of exposing emotional patterns that are impossible to ignore. It reveals where fear has been living inside someone. It also reveals where a person may have been losing themselves while searching for love. Most importantly, it shows each individual who they truly are when they stand alone. This time apart has transformed both of you, though in very different ways. It helped you rediscover your own worth without needing their approval to validate it. At the same time, it gave them the experience of moving through life without your unique presence beside them. That is why what you are feeling now seems so meaningful. The things that once remained hidden beneath avoidance and distraction are now rising to the surface. This person is beginning to understand that they do not simply miss the attention you gave them. They miss your energy. They miss your emotional depth. They miss the unique way they felt when they were around you. They miss the feeling of being understood without needing to explain every detail of themselves. That realization has become strong enough that it can no longer be pushed aside easily. What they are experiencing is not merely a passing mood or a handful of difficult evenings. It has become something constant, something that moves quietly through their daily life, whether they choose to acknowledge it or not. There are moments when they are doing something completely ordinary, and suddenly a memory of you captures their entire attention. A particular sound, a familiar scent, a simple word, or even a certain time of day begins carrying reminders of you. At first, these moments made them uncomfortable because they wanted to believe they were fully in control of their inner world. They wanted to decide exactly when you entered their thoughts and exactly when you did not. But deep emotional truth rarely follows those rules. The stronger the bond, the more naturally it finds its way into awareness. It arrives without permission and remains longer than expected. They are now approaching a point where resisting the connection requires more energy than accepting it. The walls they built for protection no longer feel protective. Instead, they are beginning to feel isolating and lonely. The silence they once believed was necessary has become heavy. It no longer feels like peace. It feels like something unresolved. And that silence has pushed them into deeper reflection than ever before. From that place of reflection, they are looking back on the past with new understanding. They remember moments when you tried to understand them while they remained guarded. They recall times when you offered patience they never fully appreciated. Those memories now carry a completely different meaning because they can finally see what was truly being offered to them. What once appeared ordinary now appears valuable beyond measure. Real love often feels ordinary while it is present every day. People do not always recognize its rarity when it surrounds them consistently. Sometimes its value becomes visible only after it is gone. This person is beginning to see just how uncommon what you offered truly was. The honesty, the emotional depth, the consistency, the comfort of being with someone who allowed them to be fully themselves without judgment. They have searched for pieces of that feeling elsewhere and repeatedly come up empty. Every unsuccessful attempt has only made your significance clearer in their mind. There have been nights when they tried with all their strength to move on completely, only to find their thoughts returning to you before the evening had even ended. There were moments when they attempted to sever the emotional connection entirely, only to feel the pull become stronger shortly afterward. Every effort to escape the bond seemed to make them more aware of its existence. Rather than creating distance, those efforts often highlighted how deeply the connection had already taken root. This happens because what existed between you was never limited to the surface. Something inside them recognized something genuine inside you. That kind of recognition does not simply disappear because someone decides it should. The shift in understanding has changed their energy at its foundation. Whether they can express it openly or not, they feel the difference. They sense that you are no longer chasing them emotionally in the same way you once did. They notice that you have become more grounded within yourself, less anxious, less dependent on their responses to maintain your own emotional balance. There is a new steadiness about you that was not there before. Ironically, that is exactly what has made their awareness of you stronger. When someone stops forcing love and begins returning to themselves, their energy takes on a completely different quality. It becomes calm, centered, and quietly powerful. You found a greater sense of peace within yourself, and in that calmness, they were finally left alone with the full strength of their own emotions. Without the distraction of your former urgency to hide behind, they could no longer avoid facing what they truly felt. Now they are standing face to face with emotions they once believed would eventually disappear. Instead of fading, those feelings have become clearer. Instead of weakening, they have become more difficult to deny. For the first time in a long while, they are beginning to understand that some connections are not measured by how often two people speak or how much time passes between them. Some connections leave an imprint that continues shaping a person long after the silence begins. And that realization is changing everything they thought they knew about you, about themselves, and about what this connection has truly meant all along. Their thoughts continue returning to this connection again and again. Their emotions are no longer allowing them to remain comfortably distant from the truth. What they feel is becoming increasingly difficult to deny. You matter to them, not in a casual or passing way, but in a manner that has deeply changed how they experience closeness, affection, and emotional connection. That realization can feel unsettling for someone who has spent a long time trying to stay in control, because once a person fully accepts how much someone means to them, they must also face the reality of vulnerability. They have to acknowledge the risks that come with opening their heart and the possibility of being hurt. Fear has influenced many of their choices for a long time. Fear of rejection, fear of losing control, fear of being truly seen and then abandoned. Fear has often felt safer than honesty because it offered protection from uncertainty. But fear eventually reaches a point where it can no longer carry the same power. There comes a moment when the burden of avoiding the truth becomes heavier than the discomfort of simply facing it. That is the stage they are gradually but unmistakably moving toward now. The silence between you no longer feels empty to them. Instead, it has become emotionally loud. Every day they remain disconnected.